George, you know something interesting about Beetlejuice?
By interesting, do you mean racist? We've seen a couple of Tim Burton pictures now, and his films have less black people than a Boston Bruins game.
Congratulations on making a hockey reference, but that's not where I was going. Although, since you mention it, it is interesting. The only visibly black person in Beetlejuice is an African witch doctor. You have to wonder if John Hughes saw that and was kicking himself for not getting that into one of his pictures. Anyway, no, not where I was going. What I find interesting is that this was made into a cartoon. In the cartoon, Beetlejuice is a friend of Lydia. Can you imagine being a little kid and only knowing Beetlejuice from the cartoon, and then you see this movie? That may have been the time the term "what the actual fuck" was invented.
It may be up there with finding out there's no Santa Claus.
Or no God.
There's no God?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that. What is the main difference between the cartoon and the movie?
I don't know. I never saw it. I just know what I read, and he's friendlier and less crass in the cartoon. He also isn't a sexual predator.
So you're saying this was a kid's cartoon with no sexual assault? Who knew that was possible?
As someone who watched Pepe Le Pew as a kid, I didn't know that was possible. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at all movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaka. And today we're discussing Beetlejuice from 1988 and some historical context. Happy Halloween!
Indeed.
First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who are flakes, who have always been flakes, and who will always be flakes. And leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. Now, Joe, take us back to 1988.
Well, before we go back to 1988, I want to remind the listeners that way back when the Top Gun sequel came out, we went to see that as a special patrons-only episode. If you want us to see Beetlejuice as a special patron episode, let us know, and we will do that. But we'll only do it if someone requests it.
Okay. All right.
And that's the way it was.
This film is set in Connecticut, so that is the town our History Corner is going to use as its newspaper source. The movie is about ghosts and death. I didn't feel like doing a downer, so we'll avoid the death part and just look at ghosts. What were human beings up to in relation to ghosts in Connecticut in 1988? Let's find out. Now, you might say, wait, Joe, ghosts don't exist. They sure don't. Anyway, George, read this headline from the Record Journal.
Great ghostly vacations. For some spirited travel, try ghost hunting.
I will read. Paul Palmer doesn't wait for Halloween night to see ghosts and goblins. He waits for his vacation. A clinical hypnotist from Worth, Illinois, Palmer uses time off to search for haunted houses. He says he finds that ghost hunting, even without ghost finding, he's never encountered any spirits, puts a haunting spin on the typical vacation. The stories are fascinating, says Palmer, who's traveled from New Orleans to London in search of ghosts. It makes the whole trip much more interesting than just seeing the usual sights. Plus, they make you think. Perhaps people do come back. End quote. Spoiler alert, everybody. People do not come back. By the way, what the fuck is a clinical hypnotist? George, isn't hypnosis bullshit?
I'm not sure that hypnosis is bullshit.
I looked it up and there's no evidence that it works. Even though they do have clinical hypnotists, it's still a thing.
Is there no evidence that it works?
There's no evidence that it works. I looked it up. People willing to, more than welcome to Google it themselves, but there's no actual medical evidence hypnotism really works.
Okay.
Although, I do know this one, this is not hypnotism, but it's interesting. This woman who went to her therapist did have the therapist give her, what are the drugs you take sometimes before you go into surgery? And
anesthesia?
Anesthesia, I guess, but it's also sometimes you
ketamine?
sometimes you'll talk and you'll give out facts about yourself. You know, they almost call it like a truth serum. In any case, he interviewed her.
I thought truth serums were bullshit too.
Well, whatever. It's truth serum is bullshit, but sometimes you'll say things when you're unconscious, whatever. The point is, he gave her these drugs. First he interviewed her, then he gave her the drugs, and she said two different things. One thing, she says when she was conscious of it, and another thing she said when she's unconscious of it, and they discussed that. I think that's an interesting way to do therapy, but I don't know if that would go on to hypnotism.
Me neither.
Would you go on a vacation to try and find ghosts?
No.
Why not? You're an adventurous person.
I'm not fascinated by ghost stories. And since ghosts don't exist, even this guy who goes looking for them in his entire time doing that hasn't found one. I don't want to go looking for something that ain't there based on a story that I'm not interested in.
I believe we had a discussion just a couple of weeks ago on the post show about ghosts. And I'm keeping with the observation I made there. If ghosts exist, we literally all see them.
Yep.
Because there is no place we've either lived, worked, or walked through where someone hasn't died.
Okay.
I don't know how it's possible that only these people see ghosts and those don't. But anyway, I guess some people have secret powers. Sure. Whatever you say. Anyway, this next story is brought to us by a Connecticut publication called The Day. Headline, George.
Ghost rumors on Navy ship spook sailors.
I will quote, flickering lights, bumps in the night, locked doors opening, voices on disconnected telephones, and a vanishing figure in a khaki uniform. The figure's even got a nickname, George.
Hey, that's my name.
That's your name. At least that's what some of the men say aboard the Forrestal in its 4th month of a 6-month deployment in the Indian Ocean and the North Arabian Sea. George lurks in 2 of the ships below the waterline storage areas. One of them, a former morgue, spooked sailors claim. I've got one guy working for me now who refuses to go down there alone. Our last chief petty officer in charge, who has since transferred, refused to go down there at all, says Petty Officer Daniel Balboa, in charge of the officer's mess. I never seen any ghosts, but you can hear weird things down there, said Balboa. I was taking inventory one night and heard a noise like deck grating being picked up and dropped, he recalled. I turned around and looked, but didn't see anything. When I turned around to begin my work, again, the noise started again. Ooh, spooky. George, do you have any ghost stories from your Navy days? And more importantly, where were you in 1988?
In 1988, I was at Chatterton Elementary School, and we did not have ghosts on our ship, but we did do stupid, superstitious things like hang chicken bones off of the main engines to keep them working.
You mentioned that before. What are chicken bones supposed to do?
Keep the evil spirits out.
Evil spirits don't like chicken?
Apparently not, Joe.
Okay.
Because they think everything tastes like it.
Ah, there you go. What if you had a dog on the ship? And he kept eating the chicken bones?
We didn't have a dog on the ship.
Aren't you allowed that? I saw one movie. Didn't we see a movie where the guy got to keep the dog on the ship?
That movie failed its reality check against down Periscope.
Fair enough. Okay, George, tell us about Beetlejuice.
Okay. This was directed by Tim Burton. For the show, we've seen his work in the 1989 Batman and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And we've both seen his work in Sleepy Hollow.
And I've seen his work in Mars Attacks.
And I've seen his work in Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, Big Fish, Corpse Bride, and Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. This was written by Michael McDowell, whose work we saw in The Nightmare Before Christmas, Larry Wilson, whose work we've both seen in the 1991 Addams Family, and Warren Scarron, the beautifully named guy, whose work we've seen for the show in the Batman 1989 and in our Beverly Hills Cop 2 test episode.
And if you're wondering, we have to put a bunch of dates in there because a lot of these things were remade.
Yep.
So you need to know which one we're talking about.
Blurbs. IMDb says, the spirits of a deceased couple are harassed by an unbearable family that has moved into their home and hire a malicious spirit to drive them out. Close enough.
Sure, why not?
Amazon says, Emmy and Golden Globe nominee Michael Keaton brings the title character Beetlejuice, the ghost with the most, to life, so to speak. Amazon wasn't even trying.
It's also a little misleading since Michael Keaton is actually not in the majority of this picture.
No, he's not. I mean, and I like Michael Keaton. I think he's a good actor. But yeah, this Amazon was just like, slobbing his knob for no fucking reason.
I mean, granted, yes, his name of his character headlines this thing, but he is not the lead.
Nope. So, we open to glowy all-caps serif typeface credits backed by a Danny Elfman-scored theme music as we pan over a scale model of Winter River, Connecticut. That model exists in the attic of our protagonists, Adam and Barbara Maitland.
Adam is played by Alec Baldwin. For the podcast, we've seen his work in Working Girl, the test episode, that is. And I've seen his work in Motherless Brooklyn, Black Klansman, Blue Jasmine, The Departed, The Cooler, The Royal Tenenbaums, that was his voice only on that one, A Streetcar Named Desire, that was a 1995 TV movie, and I also see him in Mission Impossible Fallout.
I've seen him in The Hunt for Red October, Notting Hill, Pearl Harbor, and heard his voice work in Final Fantasy The Spirits Within.
And for Barbara, she's played by Gina Davis, who we've seen for the podcast in Thelma and Louise, A League of Their Own, and Earth Girls Are Easy. And I just seen her work in Blink Twice, also seen her work in Hero, The Accidental Tourist, The Fly, that's the 1986 version, and Tootsie.
Adam carefully removes a living spider from his model before the couple exchange vacation presents. Adam receives Manchurian tongue oil, and Barbara receives enough wallpaper to redo their guest room. The couple have decided to spend their 2 weeks of vacation at home together. Adam runs the town hardware store. We don't know what Barbara is taking a vacation from. They are very much in love.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what a Manchurian tongue oil is?
It's a wood finishing oil.
Ah, okay.
And he's going to use it on his models.
Got it.
I actually looked that up so that I could answer that question if you asked.
Okay.
Their peaceful existence is interrupted by their neighbor, Jane, who is non-consensually trying to sell their home for them. I don't know how that would work.
This house is too big for you. It really ought to be for a couple with a family, you know? Oh, Pumpkin, I didn't mean anything. It's just that, really, this house is too big.
I'll see you in a few weeks.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Jane got off easy there. If I was Barbara, I'd have slapped that woman so hard.
I assume they must work together.
No.
Because I'll see you in a few weeks. I got the impression maybe they work in the same office or something. I don't know. No? Okay. So why would she see her in a few weeks?
Because they're taking 2 weeks of vacation. She doesn't want to fucking see Jane. She's saying fuck off for 2 weeks because you just why did you take that moment to remind me that I haven't had a child? You fucking That's how we learn that the Maitlands are having problems making a baby. I don't know why they tolerate this woman in their life.
All the more reason for me to wonder, like, is she some sort of... At first I thought she was a relative. But then, no, that didn't make any sense. Well, whatever. We'll never know what Gina Davis's character did for a living.
So, Adam needs to get something from the hardware store. I guess that means he gets high in his own supply?
Sure.
They drive into town to do that. The Winter River Bridge looks like a barn, and the Maitlands have to cross it to get home. A dog runs in front of their car, causing them to swerve into the wall of the bridge. Their car falls, flips, and lands roof down in the river.
Now, that is played for laughs, because if you remember, the dog is on some sort of wooden board or something that's the only thing stopping them from falling into the water.
Yeah, it's a fulcrum, and then the dog moves and the car falls because the dog was strategically just right to keep it from falling until he wasn't.
Mm-hmm. And we never see the dog again. For some reason, I thought it would be referenced.
That's because we never go to town again.
That's true, yeah.
But the thing that gets me is their car didn't have automatic windows. There's no reason they should have drowned.
They could have just swum out, yeah.
Yeah, they could have unbuckled their seatbelts, rolled down the window, and swam the fuck out. It wasn't even a particularly deep river.
Maybe they couldn't swim.
They shouldn't live that close to a river. They get home, sopping wet, and find a fire in their fireplace that they didn't light. Adam can't remember how they got home, so he goes outside to retrace their steps. When he gets off their front porch, he finds himself in a desert with weird rocky arches and a giant striped sand-swimming beast bearing down on him. We will learn later that this is supposed to be Saturn, which is a gas giant, so no it isn't.
May I point out something? I know it's pointless to do this, especially for a silly movie like this. But, and I'm not the first to make this observation, if ghosts exist and they die, why are they wearing clothes? Your clothes are not alive. If you die, your clothes aren't going with you.
On the bright side, they never change those clothes, but because they have... Well, I'm going to get to that in a second. Hold on. Barbara's hand reaches to him and pulls him back to Earth, saying he'd been gone for 2 hours. And if I stop to question what Barbara saw in that moment, I will never get this summary. Barbara hurriedly brings him to their fireplace where a mirror shows them as having no reflection. Then she points him to a book on the coffee table that they'd never seen before. Handbook for the Recently Deceased.
You know what? I don't think we survived the crash.
And we have a plot. Of sorts. So at first I wondered how she could say that so calmly. Then I wondered if words like calm matter to a being that doesn't technically have an endocrine system that would flood them with stress hormones, and again had to stop myself from rabbit holing so I could get this summary done.
Well, there's so many questions. I mean, they obviously can lift things, so they can physically touch stuff. Mm-hmm. What makes me wonder, like, so are ghosts supposed to be able to do that? I mean, how are you a solid if you're also things supposed to also go through you? And because I have a dirty mind, I wonder, do they have sex? And how would that work? How do they cause friction? Can he even open up his zipper? Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you could see the look on Jordan's face right now. But seriously, can ghosts fuck? I really want to know.
Well, have you seen Ghostbusters?
Oh, that's true. According to Ghostbusters, they can. Well, they can cause out of humans, but can they do each other?
I mean, if they can do a human, they could probably do each other. They try to make sense of the handbook, but their own incredulity and impatience get in their way. As night falls, we pan through the earth to someone reading a newspaper by candlelight, identifying the Maitlands in the obituaries as prime targets for his shenanigans. We see flyers with his name and occupation. Beetlejuice, bioexorcist.
Beetlejuice is played by Michael Keaton. For the show, we've seen him in Mr. Mom and Batman. And George and I both have seen him in Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And for myself, I've seen him in The Flash, Morbius, The Trial of the Chicago 7, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spotlight.
And I've seen him in Batman Returns and Multiplicity. The next day, Adam is irritated that he can't see their funeral or where they're buried so that he can update his model. And Barbara is irritated because their vacuum is in the garage and they can't leave the house, so she can't clean anything properly.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, you know, women, that's the first thing they want to clean.
Yep.
I'm dead and I still want to clean things because I'm a female, I guess.
Outside, Jane brings her daughter to say goodbye. The Maitlands try to get her attention from the attic window, but as the handbook will tell them, the living usually won't see the dead.
God, this book is so stupid. I can't understand anything in it.
Barb, honey, we're dead. I don't think we have very much to worry about anymore.
Well, if that were true, we wouldn't have an hour and 20 left in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Those problems will start with the fact that Jane has managed to sell their house. The very next day, the new owners arrive. The Dietzes are from New York City. They're moving up here so that the father, Charles, can get away from his hectic, high-pressure life before it kills him. Charles is played by Jeffrey Jones. For the show, we've seen him in Amadeus. We've both seen him in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Sleepy Hollow, and I've seen him in Howard the Duck, Who's Harry Crumb, The Hunt for Red October, and The Devil's Advocate. And
before we go on to the next credit, I suppose we should really bring up Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, he's a creep.
He is, he's on the sex offenders list. I think that's all we really need to get into there. That'll explain why he is not in the sequel.
The stepmother, Delia, is a sculptor in that she sculpts things. The beauty of art is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Delia is played by Catherine O'Hara. For the show, we've seen her in Away We Go and heard her in The Nightmare Before Christmas. We've both seen her in Dick Tracy and Home Alone, and I've seen her in Wyatt Earp and A Series of Unfortunate Events. The daughter, Lydia, likes to take pictures and wear black clothes and be sullen. She's a prototypical goth kid.
Lydia is played by Winona Ryder, who we've seen for the show in Heathers, and I've seen in Little Women, 1994 version, Black Swan, and Star Trek 2009 version.
And I've seen her in Edward Scissorhands, Girl Interrupted, Zoolander, and Simone. They bring along with them their interior decorator, Otho, He's a kindred spirit with Delia, and I have my own headcanon about that. No, Joe, I will not go into it here. Otho is played by Glenn Shaddix. For the show, we've seen him in Heathers and heard him in The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I've seen him in Demolition Man and Multiplicity.
I completely forgot that he was in Heathers.
Mm-hmm. He was the priest.
The priest, yeah.
Otho and Delia start marking walls for repainting. Charles claims the study is his and forbids them to make any changes there. The Maitlands are watching all of this, horrified. Adam's been reading the handbook and thinks they're not totally helpless because they're ghosts, and ghosts can haunt things.
They can. Ghosts can definitely haunt things. We know that much. That's established.
Yep.
We don't know if they can have sex, but we definitely know they can haunt things.
I know that their haunting can be mistaken for sex. That'll happen in a minute.
Oh, true. By the way, can ghosts get pregnant?
No, I would say no. That would be no weirder than ghosts existing, period, but weird.
So the guy's shooting blanks. Or is it that her eggs aren't there, which are both?
Maybe they can have sex, but they can't orgasm.
Oh, God, that would be terrible.
Their first attempts are to make themselves gruesome and lie in wait, but, that doesn't work on people who won't see them. Pin in that!
Mm-hmm.
The best they can do right now is close and lock the attic to keep that at least safe. Frustrated, Barbara storms out of the house, landing on Saturn. Adam follows her. They're attacked by another of those sandworms. Barbara bonks it on the nose when it strikes, buying them enough time to get back through the floating door to their home. Well, not their home anymore, but their hunting ground.
Barbara is really not afraid of large worms.
Nope. The Dietzes order Cantonese takeout, though Delia would much prefer Szechuan.
Which would be what?
Different.
Because when I go to a Chinese restaurant, do you ever notice what the difference between Cantonese, Chinese, and Szechuan? I know there's a difference in language, but in terms of the food, I didn't know there was a big difference.
Well, I don't think I've never eaten Cantonese. I've eaten Szechuan, and tends to be kind of spicier than Chinese stuff. Lydia says her life is a big dark room. Charles says he's perfectly happy here, and that the people in New York don't know what they're missing. The Maitlands overhear that all of the furniture is getting replaced and that Delia is intent on clearing out the attic, too. The next day, the property is crawling with contractors, and the exterior of the house has been modernized? Yuppified? I don't know.
I don't know either.
The Maitlands find a flyer for Beetlejuice in the handbook, but can't work out how to call him, or even if they want to. Jane shows up and hands Lydia a skeleton key for the house. Lydia looks up toward the attic and sees Adam and Barbara up there, to their surprise. As Lydia tries to get into the attic, the TV comes on, and Beetlejuice stars in an ad for himself, telling the viewer to say his name 3 times for help getting rid of living people. Adam jams the keyhole, knocking the skeleton key out, keeping their attic safe, again, for now.
Right, Lydia tries to get in, and he's like, no. I have apparently the strength. I can materialize just enough to push a key out.
Mm-hmm. The Maitlands find instructions in the book for how to get help. Step 1 is to draw a door, so Adam picks up chalk and draws a door on the chimney bricks. Step 2 is knock 3 times on the ceiling
if you want me.
So they do that, and a door opens up to let them into a waiting area. Other dead people are there, all waiting for help from their caseworkers. We get a little more insight into this world. Ghosts are bound to their places, whatever those rules are, for 125 years, and are allowed 3 instances of assistance from their caseworkers. Since they don't have an appointment, the Maitlands will have to wait.
Sure, that makes sense.
I mean, if the afterlife is a bureaucracy, nope, yeah, that tracks.
I wonder why they just came up with the number 125. And I still wonder, if a place gets torn down and another place is put in that spot, does that mean those ghosts are haunting the new place, or are they now free?
I wouldn't necessarily say good questions, Joe, but they're questions. And that's not a dig on you, that's a dig on the material. In the meantime, Lydia gains access to the attic and finds the town model. When the Maitlands are finally called back, they pass by a room with floating green apparitions. They get an explanation from a janitor.
That's the lost souls room. A room for ghosts that have been exorcised. Good devils. That's death for the dead. It's all in the handbook. Keep moving.
Okay, sure.
Yep. They get where they were instructed to go, to the 6th door, and enter. They find themselves back in their home 3 months later. Their caseworker, Juno, is waiting for them.
Juno's played by Sylvia Sidney. who I know from Mars Attacks, is apparently an old-time movie star, but I have never seen any of her work, except Mars Attacks and this movie.
Me neither.
Sorry, Sylvia. I'm sure you were good in your day.
Well, I think this was the third to last movie she did.
Her last movie was Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
Which is a bad way to go out.
She's frustrated with them for not having read the handbook. She says to keep the haunting simple and to use their talents, whatever the fuck that means. She says they should practice, whatever the fuck that means. Juno is in a rush, but before she goes, Barbara asks about Beetlejuice. Juno warns them not to say his name and says they do not want his help without actually saying anything that would dissuade them. Then she vanishes.
Yeah, it would probably help her to explain why they should.
Hey, he's a sex pest. Don't
something
bring the sex pest into this story. That's but she can't do that because it's titled after the guy.
Indeed. Yeah, the script says so. Script says she's got to be vague about the reason they can't call on him.
The Maitlands cut some eye holes in some sheets and start wandering the house moaning. They interrupt all three Dietzes. Charles was on the phone trying to get his former boss to come visit and invest in property. Delia is sleeping with the TV on. Lydia is trying to sleep. The adults don't take it seriously. Delia doesn't even wake up. Lydia takes a bunch of photos with a Polaroid camera that spits photos out way too fast and far and whose pictures develop unnaturally fast.
You noticed that, did you?
I did notice that, Joe. I did. She realizes that it's the Maitland ghosts because there are no feet visible under the sheets.
Yeah, sure. That's a good explanation. Let me see. If I see a bunch of white people in sheets, ghosts is not where my mind's going to go.
I don't blame you. I think very carefully these sheets were not just white. They had patterns on them. Because the people who wear the white sheets don't wear the ones with the patterns on them.
I suppose they don't.
The Maitlands reveal themselves, and Lydia is disappointed that they're not gruesome. They spend some time in the attic getting acquainted before Lydia excuses herself.
They, bond real quick.
Yep. In the morning, Delia is prepping for a dinner party and busy not believing Lydia about the ghosts.
In all honesty, who can blame her?
Right? Later, Beetlejuice gets their attention, and, feeling mischievous, the Maitlands invoke his name 3 times. They are transported into the town model and are made to dig through the corkboard and cardboard underneath to his grave where he pops out dramatically.
Which seems unnecessary, especially since we see him reading a newspaper outside of the grave.
Well, we don't see him. It panned down through earth and stuff, so he might have been in like a pocket in the table doing that. I don't know how he got candles that small and then lit them under there, but hey, I didn't write the movie. The Maitlands instantly regret their decision and spend the next few minutes trying to get away from him as he uses high-pressure sales tactics and casual sexual assault to get them to hire him.
Yeah, that's a little jarring, to be honest with you. I've forgotten. Wow, he really is a sex pest. And play for laughs.
Yep. Barbara accidentally stumbles on a new thing, saying home 3 times that gets them back to their normal size standing in the attic. Saying things 3 times, so just go through the fucking dictionary saying every word 3 times and see what the fuck happens.
Yeah, sure. Sounds like a good idea. Fun Friday night.
Barbara gets an idea. When the Dietzes throw their dinner party, the Maitlands possess them and their guests into performing a dance number to Harry Belafonte's Deo before having their shrimp dishes reach out to grab their faces and push them over. It is the best fucking scene in the movie. It is the only scene in the movie that will consistently make me laugh. Unfortunately, this doesn't scare the Dietzes off. They think it was the best scene in the movie, too.
It's true, they do. They're very excited about it.
They want to turn the town into a paranormal research tourist destination. When the Maitlands refuse to come down, the investor types bail. The Dietzes and Otho are finally allowed into the attic, with the Maitlands hanging out the window. Otho sees the handbook and pockets it.
Now, I didn't get that. Why did they feel the need to hang out the window?
I think they were trying to hide from Lydia, too.
But I don't know if they had to hang out the window to do that. There are other spaces you could have hid. And I still think at that point, the family still can't see them.
They could have just gone through the chimney.
At least.
If they fall off that ledge, they're on fucking Saturn.
Yeah. Also, why don't they just possess them and make them go back downstairs?
Yeah.
Or for that matter, possess them and have them sell the house. Or not sell
Possess them, and make them kill each other.
Well, that may be a bit much. I don't think those characters want them to kill anybody.
I don't want these people in my house. I'm going to make them not be in my house anymore.
And they're not willing to go that far. Clearly, because that's why they have problems with Beetlejuice, who is willing to go that far, it appears.
When the Dietzes get back to the second floor, the banister handrail has become a snake body with a Beetlejuice head. It sends Otho falling down a flight of stairs and drops Charles straight down before Barbara comes in and says Beetlejuice 3 times, sending him back to the model. Lydia is now terrified and screams for them to leave her family alone before locking herself in her room. The Maitlands are forcefully summoned back to Juno's office, where 6 members of a football team are coming to terms with their own demise from a bus crash. She lambasts the Maitlands for allowing themselves to be photographed and for allowing Otho to get a hold of the handbook. Now they have to go back and get those things, because the central conceit of this film is that
we cannot have a routine haunting like yours provide proof that there is existence beyond death.
Why?
Why? You have a fucking Bible that already does that most of at least America, believes.
Also, the fact that Otho can see the book means that it's obviously meant for humans as well. Because otherwise, why should the book should also be ghostly and can't be seen by humans?
Right?
And he not only can see it, he can pick it up and read it.
Yeah.
Like it was a normal book.
Meanwhile, Otho foreshadows some supernatural shenanigans, and Lydia attempts to pen a suicide note, saying she will have jumped. No, plummeted from the Winter River Bridge. Never mind that that's less than a full story of falling into a rather calm river that isn't terribly deep.
Also, it's a shame I couldn't think of a quote from Heathers at that point, because that would have been perfect.
Right? She should have gotten Christian Slater to write it for her.
Ah, yes.
Before Juno releases the Maitlands, she asks them what they'll do to scare the Dietzes. The Maitlands fuck up their faces into scary stuff, but seem to have forgotten that other than Lydia, nobody can fucking see them! And Juno was damned well aware of that, but thinks this is a good answer to that question.
It's almost as if the people who wrote this forgot what they wrote previously.
Right? They could write, but they couldn't read.
They couldn't read. Or they just forgot. Like, whatever. Who cares what I meant the previous part of the film? We don't have to reread the script. Let's just keep going.
Back in the attic, Beetlejuice introduces his miniature self to Lydia. She almost says his name 3 times before the Maitlands come back into the attic, scaring her with their faces, before they all have to hide because Charles and Otho have come up to bring the town model downstairs.
Also, she knows what Beetlejuice does and did, because she was there when he was doing the whole banister thing and making her father fall down into the floor and the other guy fall down the stairs. So why would she say his name or anything else? You're like, oh, I gotta stay away from this guy as well.
Right? After Charles gives his presentation of a wax museum and insect zoo idea, he asks Lydia to bring the ghosts. She says they're not there anymore, but Otho doesn't believe her. What's more, he has the handbook. So they all sit at the table, and Otho leads a seance-like exorcism, using the Maitlands' wedding outfits as spiritual anchors of some sort. Barb fades away from Adam and reappears in her wedding dress floating above the table. Adam fades and reappears similarly. They both start to seemingly age rapidly and start crumbling to dust. Otho doesn't know how to stop the ritual, so Lydia runs to the model and summons Beetlejuice, who somehow stops the Maitlands from deteriorating, and that whole thing starts to reverse.
Not explain why. Why would his presence do that?
Right?
Because he doesn't say anything. There's no incantation.
No, he makes a golf gesture like he's putting at them to knock them down, and they fall down where they start to heal.
Very strange. But then, strange movie.
Yep. In exchange, he wants to marry Lydia,
the child. Why do we keep getting this theme, goddammit? I'm sick of having to discuss this in every fucking movie. It just comes up weird pedophile shit comes up. I don't understand it. We're not looking for this, folks. I swear to God, it's right there in the fucking pictures.
I mean, the age difference is astonishing. He's like 600 years old. And she's like 16.
And it's so unnecessary. Why did they have to make it a wedding? I don't even understand why that's even there.
Or just make her 18.
Or just make it some other ritual. I don't know.
Yeah.
She could never be as old as him, even 18. He's still too old for her.
He summons some kind of officiant and throws Lydia's voice as her I do moment, which that doesn't seem consensual.
No.
That doesn't seem like it should be binding in any universe. The Maitlands try to stop him, but he zaps Adam into the model and then Barbara to Saturn. How the fuck does he have that power?
I don't know.
Before the ceremony can finish, Barbara returns through the ceiling, riding a sandworm that chomps down on Beetlejuice, saving everyone. And now everyone can see the Maitlands.
For some reason. I really want to examine Barbara's relationship with worms. I think there's something there. I don't know. She smacks him, she rides him. That woman knows her worms.
Sometime later, Charles is happily reading in his study and Delia is sculpting again. Better than before. The living room is restored to the pre-Dietz's style. Lydia gets home, and because she got an A on her math test, she gets to have Adam possess her and the house into playing Shake Sonora while she floats into the air with the dead football players as backup dancers.
Now, okay, so she doesn't go to her parents about this. In fact, their dad says, I guess you got an A. Never comes downstairs.
They know it's happening, and they know why it's happening.
So is this now Barbara and what's-his-face kid now?
I mean,
that's what it seems like.
They're basically Aunt Barbara and Uncle Adam.
But the way the film ends, it's almost like this is now her parents. Her parents don't give a shit. Like, she's got an A. Oh, that's good for her. I'm going to stay at my den and keep reading.
No, these two she's better off being tutored by these two anyway.
I suppose that's true.
When Beetlejuice, sitting in the afterlife waiting room, switches his more than 8-digit now serving number with the witch doctor sitting next to him, who had number 4, the witch doctor shrinks Beetlejuice's head.
The one between his shoulders.
Yeah. The end.
The end.
I had 4 different Beetlejuice toys based on moments in this movie.
Oh, yeah?
I had Beetlejuice whose head spun around.
Mm-hmm.
Beetlejuice who had spikes that shot out of him. Beetlejuice who had a big head that you could take off, and then he had the little shrunken head underneath. And then Beetlejuice who had a coffin that you could open and close.
Oh, interesting. It's such a curious film because this movie is clearly not made for children, but apparently when it came out and it turned out to be somewhat popular,
kids fucking loved it.
Oh, yeah, but it clearly wasn't made for children, I don't think.
No, I don't think it was either.
But people took their kids and they loved it.
Uh-huh.
Look, honey, non-consensual touching is funny.
Yeah.
You won't take any bad messages from that.
None at all.
Oh, God. All right. Does this still work?
No. I have a special place in my heart for this movie, but as the me I am now, this movie is fucking problematic. The only funny thing is the Banana Boat song scene. I will die on that hill that is funny. And that is because Catherine O'Hara is a fucking gem of an actress. Like, I'm going to gush on that scene for a second.
Sure.
So what you have, right, are these two ghosts with more or less human, like, cognitive abilities who can take control of other human beings' minds and bodies. But they can't do this perfectly, especially not when they're trying to control 6 people. So you see them, like, their facial expressions go in and out of possession. Like, they are in character as who they are when they're possessed, trying to do a music video to Deo, but then they're confused and fucking terrified because they don't understand what's happening before, like, the Maitland catches them and then, like, oh, no, you're back in the moment again. Like, I think it was a very well acted scene in addition to being funny.
Mm-hmm.
Beetlejuice as a character is fucking terrible. The fact that the film is titled after this sex pest makes it hot garbage.
Yeah, I did not originally see this when it came out. I eventually did see it though, and seen it a couple of times since then. Of course, I've seen it again for the show. Each time I've seen it, never really found it funny. I did forget how bad Beetlejuice was. That skipped my mind. I'm like, wow, he does some stuff that is really not good. Beyond that, yeah, I guess I would agree with you. That's probably the best scene is when they're doing the dance at the table. This is surprisingly not that funny a picture. I don't even know who I'm supposed to root for. I understand I'm supposed to root for the ghost, I guess, but I didn't find anyone in this particularly interesting. I didn't find the movie necessarily boring, but I just never really could get into it because I didn't really connect to the characters. Obviously the whole premise is absurd, which, I could get into absurdity. But how funny it is. I mean, like I said, we saw not like I said, but I mean, like the Adam Sandler movie we last saw, not the last one, but the one where he's playing golf and then he turns out to be a good golfer, whatever name that one was. That was absurd. That was the dumbest thing I ever saw. Laughed hard. So I don't mind dumb. It's gotta be funny. I just didn't think Beetlejuice was that funny. So yeah, it didn't work for me. And yeah, Beetlejuice is a really problematic character. And frankly, I'm also, you said that you thought some of the football players are black. I don't think that's true, but people can correct me on that. Welcome to write in. I do believe the only black representation, though, is the witch doctor. People can correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Well, to be clear, I said that in an outtake from the cold open.
That's okay. It was fine. You said it offline. Whatever.
You didn't have to defend your position because I wasn't going to challenge it in the show.
I'm just saying. In case I could be wrong. It's possible. Hey, George, what's up next?
Well, our next episode is a Patron's Choice episode, and we don't know what that's going to be because the movie hasn't been finalized yet as of this recording. If you want to vote, but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
Indeed. I do these way ahead of time, so I have absolutely no idea what film we have the three you guys get to select on, but there's a theme. I don't always know what the theme is, but there's definitely a theme of pictures. So check that out, just for that fun. And please vote. Okay, so I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
Just to let the non-patrons know, if you want to hear from my wife, Kit, she's going to be joining us for the post-show. So stick around for that, or become a patron so that you can.
Indeed.
So I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
Go ahead. Make my millennium.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
The dead football players are all black.
Really? Are you sure?
Yep.
I don't think so.
I paid extra attention this time because I knew they were there, and I knew you had written that in the cold open, and then I forgot to tell you. Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
I don't think you're right.
You said visibly black, and I'm going to say that means that it wasn't obscured by a football helmet.
Dear Ann Landers.
Dear Ann Landers.
Dear Beth,